that box, not limited to, but not restricted to as well. So more to come on that based on obviously the weather, and the Y is always open to us, but I think it'll be more of just the weather that would be a hindrance if anything. Today or tomorrow, I plan to send everybody who I arbitrarily, mind you, pulled names and assigned everybody for the Secret Santa, which will happen in December. So I'll send everybody an individual email who they will be purchasing for, and we'll find out who's really friends or not. As to Jerry said, I'm only spending 25. If you spend 50, that means you really like them. So anyhow, and then Joan and I will talk offline, more to come on youth services in regards to the speech contest, and then the RILA update. I think those are the biggest things at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rebecca. So I'll go right into our program for the day. Our speaker is Cecelia Babkirk. Cecelia has been a Rotarian since 1994. She has served twice as club president, which is kind of similar to many of us in this club, and has served in many district positions, including assistant governor, international service chair, vocational service chair, lieutenant governor, wow, district grants chair, and as the District Rotary Foundation Chair. So in June 2019, she retired after 45 years in the mortgage business and joined the Peace Corps. And so I'm really excited to hear about that. And Cecelia believes that the best way to experience the internationality of Rotary is to become involved in a Rotary grant project that includes travel as a component. So Cecelia, you're on.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And this presentation I gave to the Area 6 WCS Projects Committee because I am working on a project related to my Peace Corps service. And so it's a little different than, I also have one that's sort of a travelogue presentation that is a little different from this. But so I will go ahead and after a few little clicks, I'll share my screen. And okay, and then we can get started. Okay, so there was, when I'm doing this in Google Drive, there's kind of a little video that shows where I started here in California and the crossing, it's a Google Earth thing, crossing 2 continents and an ocean and ending up in southern Ethiopia in a town called Hosanna, which is about 4 hours from Hawassa, actually, Joan. Hawassa is a much nicer place than Hosanna, which is just sort of an everyday sort of business city at this point. Chaotic, like so many cities in Africa, but anyway, so that would give you an idea of where I was. But a better idea is, here is a map of Ethiopia, and it is in the Horn of Africa, surrounded by all kinds of interesting neighbors like Somalia and South Sudan and Kenya and Uganda and places like that. And some of them are friendly, some of them are not so friendly. But, and we had a large area of the country that we were not allowed to go into, mostly around all the exterior areas there and then the capital. I was posted to the town of Soda, which is not a registered town, so therefore it does not appear on any maps. But this would give you just a little idea. If you look up Hadia Zone and look for Gibe, I was about, 10 miles from there. So Soda is a typical southern Ethiopian farm town. Every town for miles around until you get down to the city looks like this. Lots of dirt, usually a lot of animals, a lot of ramshackle housing, and really hardworking people who, know that there's a better way. And that was why they invited the Peace Corps to bring a volunteer into my town. This is the road into town on a good day. And this is the road into town on a rainy day in the rainy season. Those ruts that you see in the road are about 3 feet deep. I always said you could bury a casket in one of them. It's a terrifying road, needless to say, and the rainy season is a real thing. Like, it rains there during the rainy season about 15 inches a day, which by comparison to us ours is like, 15 inches a year in a regular year, and more, obviously, if we have a wet year. But the rainy season is a definite thing to be reckoned with. This is the main way that we would get around on these sort of big buses they're a lot like a chicken bus in Guatemala, but they don't quite look like it. And these are typical homes, which are called sarbets. And in a spread like this that you can see, the house in the middle would be the house that the family lived in. The house on the right would store grain, or it might be a place where they would put their animals at night, because this is hyena country and you don't dare leave your animals, which are often your wealth, out in the elements at night, because they might be just a pile of bones when you find them the next morning. This is a typical Southern Ethiopian family, and in fact, they were my host family. I stayed with them for 6 months until I was evacuated, and they're just really great, salt of the earth people, hardworking, really hardworking. I'll tell you about some of that in a minute. The dominant crop in Soda is wheat. In some of Ethiopia, it's teff, which is an ancient grain. In other places in Ethiopia, it's coffee, which Ethiopia is considered to be, of course, the birthplace of coffee as we know it. Nearly all the families farm wheat, and it's really hard work. And going back a couple slides, if I can, those bales, of course, were after the harvest, which we actually had to close the school for a week so that the kids could help their families bring the harvest in. And we had early rains, and that sort of compounded the issues with that. Here is the gate to my school. Every school has a gate something like this, where, all looks really important. And I guess it's good that they do that. And so the name of my school, you can barely see it in there, is Mochiso Soda Senior Secondary School. And so when you get inside the gate, you get to the school grounds, which are lovely. And as you can see, they hold all the school assemblies on the lawn there, because there is no such thing as a gym or an arena or a multi-purpose room. And so it's all very rudimentary there. This is a typical classroom. This was the first day of my first class. We had 81 students in that room. It's a lot. It's terrifying, actually, but eventually it all worked out. There were no textbooks until I bought them, and it took me 3 months to find where they could be bought. And had I even thought to ask my Peace Corps bosses, because that's who knew where to find them, I would have had them much sooner. But these are my 11th graders bringing the boxes in from the bus. The teachers, this is a typical lunch scene where about half the teachers from the school, go to one or another of two places, and we have lunch followed by coffee. This was the coffee part of that. The teachers are poorly paid, of course, if they get paid at all, because the Wareda, which is the equivalent of the school district, does not pay them on a timely basis. So they go on strike, then the students go on strike, and you lose a week of school. So trying to plan to get through the entire curriculum in a year is a really big challenge. But these were my colleagues, and we all became good friends, and I, of course, miss them a lot. The community needs there really are endless in many ways. A big need is economic development that can lead to jobs. More than half of the people in all these communities is under the age of 30, and most of them do not get a college or university education, and sometimes even if they do, they can end up being unemployed. So jobs are much needed there. Also improved education, electricity and connectivity, because there are electrical wires and there is a mobile network, but the electricity works less than half the time, and usually at night, when it might be great to have it to study if you have a lamp to put in there, but mostly it's from like 9 p.m. until 6 a.m. that it works, which is not the most productive time for most people. Connectivity is through the mobile network. There's no Wi-Fi, and part of the reason for that is there's no reliable electricity. And so with time, probably 5 or 6 years from now, the government will improve all that. But in the meantime, something needs to be done to help these students, because every day that they don't have connectivity through the internet is, they're losing time. They're going backward in the world. And that was painfully obvious to me. And then, of course, a big need is water, improved health, and agriculture. And I'm actually working on, not through a Rotary Foundation grant, a water and electricity solution, which I hope to be able to bring to the community when I return about a year from now. So I'm doing a global grant project, and we are planning to address 2 areas of focus, one of which is basic education and literacy. The other is economic and community development. In basic education and literacy, we plan and hope to upgrade the basic education through the implementation of a educational system called Project Aries in both the preschool, primary school, and in the high school. We need to upgrade and add some furnishings because the school population increases every year, but there are no resources to provide for that increase. So we need it all, desk, chairs, blackboards, supplies, and solar panels, which would help us be able to provide Wi-Fi on the campus, actually. And then provide teacher training at all levels to include Western teaching techniques and the use of the technology to improve education. So Project Aries is an education solution, and there are a couple similar kinds of things out there, but I feel that this is the best, actually, of all of them. It's sort of like some of the others on steroids. And that box that you see there, obviously not very big, thanks to, modern technology, is both a router and a server. The router will throw a Wi-Fi signal across the school grounds up to 300 feet. And it'll be closed circuit. No one from the outside will be able to get in, and no one in the school will be able to get, outside and reach the wider internet from it. But it will allow for a lot of things to happen in the classrooms that will be great. And these systems come with, so to back up a little bit, the other part of this box is a server. And on that server are installed, all the country textbooks will be on there. So kids I won't have to buy textbooks for the whole school, which was my original plan, but textbooks, Khan Academy, Wikipedia, Project Guggenheim with 40,000 books, 800 TED Talks, and a boatload of other educational software is installed on this thing, and we can add more. So the system comes, the basic system, with this server router and a projector and 20 laptops or whatever kind of computer they want that we can get. And all of it has to, of course, be stored securely, and it will. And we can add, my plan is actually to include about 40 laptops. You can do up to about 50 before the Wi-Fi becomes insufficient, but I want to make sure that we have enough because the school has 800 students and we have to figure out how to equitably give access to all of them. So this system is being used in Kenya, and the schools that have installed it have gone from being near the bottom in national test scores to near the top within 2 months of installation. So I think it's pretty impressive, and I'm looking forward to being able to use this in the schools there. And I just pretty much told you all of this, so don't think I need to go over that again, but it is an off-grid solution, and that's what makes it really great for us. Everything is battery operated, so when the electricity is on, all these devices can be charging, and then they'll be available for use the next, for the next who knows how many days. But anyway, so that's how that will work. Economic and community development. So the goal is to develop some economic opportunity. Right now, people only farm, a few people raise animals, but there's no even hint of industry or manufacturing or anything like that. So we're talking about doing some culturally appropriate technologies with this grant, one of which would be to start a biomass briquette manufacture. And this was the thing I referred to earlier. So the women, the mother of my host family, every day have to go out, gather wood, drag it back because it's often in large pieces and mostly downed wood, but even still, drag it back, chop it up, burn it down to charcoal, and then they can cook with it. They have like little one burner charcoal stoves and it's not healthy because they cook inside. And so biomass briquettes would eliminate a lot of that unhealthy air and also stop people from, if they are chopping down branches or whatever, it'll help with forestation. Another thing would be to set up a little factory to produce biogas digesters that people would purchase for their homes. Biogas is basically made from, you take human waste, animal waste, and vegetation waste, you put it all in a tank, you put water in with it, it develops a slurry, and you close that off. And within a few months, actually, that will ferment and produce methane gas, which can be used on cooking stoves and for lanterns to provide light in the house. And so there's lots and lots of organic waste in these communities. So that in many ways is, appropriate for that type of a community to do that. Then another thing would be to have a community garden on the school grounds, and what would be produced there would be sold in the twice weekly market. The community, there's no lack of food there, but there's almost no variety. So they have no concept about eating the rainbow, as we sometimes hear. You can get carrots, but you cannot get tomatoes. About the only thing you can get in the town is potatoes, onions, little hot peppers, and a type of spinach that is locally produced there. And people would eat more variety, but they have no access to it because those things are not grown there. But they could be grown there. Everything that you stick in the ground grows in that location. And then finally, a chicken husbandry operation, because even though it's a farm community, there are no chickens. And so there are no eggs unless you go down to town and get them. So that's what I hope to do with that part of the grant. Our partners are the Rotary Club of Addis Ababa and Toto. This slide got skewed. Rotarian Tegas Yilma is the National Polio Plus Committee Chair for all of Ethiopia, and I did attend a couple of their meetings while I was there. The cooperating organization is an organization called Holt International. Zerahun Gulti is the country director there, and they are actually headquartered in Oregon. And Joan, I'd be interested after we're finished here to hear about your sponsoring experience, because Holt does have a sponsorship program for children in Ethiopia and the 14 other countries that they are active in. And then
let's exchange email and phone number.
Yeah, sure. And then the international sponsor is my club, the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. So the estimated budget, I'm not quite sure why this isn't showing the whole slide. Because it's, we'll see. So Project Aries, I estimate that we can provide 4 schools with a Project Aries system and 40 computers. And this would be a cost of about $10,000 each, so that's $40,000. School furniture and equipment estimated at $20,000. And then the biomass briquette maker and training, biogas digester materials, community garden materials, and chicken coops, etc., would be, as you can see there, 10, 10, and 5, and 5,000. So the total is $90,000 for the grant. Our fundraising project to date, progress to date, is we have $29,600 that has been converted from cash thanks to District 5170. I had a big cash donation and they allowed me to purchase DDF with it. And then we have DDF of $1,500 from the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. So the DDF needed to meet the project total is $13,900. And I did the presentation to the Area 6. I know that you guys participate in the Area 6 project group. And so I have done the presentation and they're going to consider what to do, if anything, in January. But happy to take cash donations as well. Our estimated timeline for this is grant applications submitted around mid-January, approval, we hope, by April 30th, and funding around May 31st of next year. The implementation will begin October 1st of next year. The 4 months between the end of May and October is the rainy season, and or 5 months. And it rains so hard that you often cannot even get up and down the hill from the town that's nearby, Hosanna. So I'm not anticipating that we'll actually start any work there until October, by which time I hope to be there. So thank you for considering your support of the project, and mostly thank you for listening. Okay, I'll stop the share. There we go. Do you have any questions?
Cecelia, what about the dam, the big dam project that was supposed to go online about now?
It's
that was going to correct the electricity problem in Ethiopia.
Well, it will provide 80% of the electrical needs in the country, but and it's being filled right now. There's a big conflict with Egypt and Sudan over the rate at which they're going to fill the dam, because that affects the flows to the water flows to those countries down the Nile River. And I mean, there's sometimes a fair amount of saber rattling that goes on about that between Egypt and Ethiopia, and sometimes a little talk of war. I hope, and I think it won't come to that. Once the dam is filled, I think Ethiopia's intention is to release water, at least at the level that those countries usually received it. But right now, the flow of water is not what it normally would be. if nature had her choice. And so, yeah. So, I mean, I think within 5 years, all of those problems will be solved. But in the meantime, you've got 5 years of kids that are not getting an adequate education. You've got 5 years of no economic activity. And so this is something that can be done that will help with all of that beginning next year.
Okay. What made you decide after you retired to go to Ethiopia and be in the Peace Corps?
Well, I was always going to live outside the US when I retired. I had made up my mind about that some years ago. And my plan A was that I would live in each of 8 places for 3 months. And then if I liked any of them well enough, go back and stay. But then I read an article about a woman who retired from her job at, 65 or 70 years old and went into the Peace Corps, and just how much she liked it. I had forgotten about the Peace Corps. I mean, we all probably thought about it when college recruiters were trying to get us to join as 20-somethings, but the Peace Corps they have a goal of having 15% of their volunteers be from, the mature ages, so to speak. Now, they need to actually improve their medical clearance process, which is hard. I'm pretty healthy, and oh my God, what they put me through before they finally approved me, it was unbelievable. And I wasn't the only one. Actually, almost everyone complained about it. But, and I chose my program, 30, 40 years ago, you couldn't choose where you were going or what you would be doing. And I specifically chose Ethiopia and education. And part of the reason for Ethiopia is because the Peace Corps has a certificate program that they only do in 3 places in the world. And having that certificate, you would be qualified to work for the Department of Defense or the Department of State. Not that I plan to go to work for either one of those after my stint with getting into the Peace Corps. Not sure I want to work for any more government agencies.
So how do you communicate? I mean, I know you're teaching English, but is it pretty well that you can speak English and get things done?
Yes. I mean, yes. So in theory, every student from grade 5 through 12 they start learning English in grade 5, and the teachers, all of them, every subject, are supposed to teach their class in English. Now, as a practical matter, none of them do, but I did. And all those kids in that one slide were like, oh my God, is she going to teach us in English? And English is their 3rd language, because they first, of course, learn the local language. There are 85 languages in Ethiopia. And then they learn the national language beginning in the 1st grade. And then they learn English beginning in the 5th grade. And it's mandatory. And I think that's wrong, actually. I think they should do like we do, which is when you get into high school, you decide what track you want to be on and whether you want to learn a language, and then you do it. I mean, I don't think I suffered for not having learned Spanish in grade 5. So.
But the thing is, for those kids, knowing English is going to be so important to the use of the computer.
Oh, and knowing English is so important for everything,
So much of the training you want to provide comes from that direction. And I get concerned about Ethiopian kids who don't develop English skills.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of parents don't think it's that important, but, and it was hard. The first 2 months were really challenging because those kids had very, very poor skills. I mean, they had been in English classes for 6 years, and the majority of them could not speak a word and didn't want to.
Yeah,
2/3 at least. And then the rest were varying degrees of involvement. But from the day that the textbooks came, really within 2 weeks, that class made a big turnaround. They started participating more. They really did start speaking and reading. You know, it was poor, but they kind of got over because they had something to look at. You know, I was having to teach before that. I had the only book in the school, English textbook. So I was writing flip charts, posting them on the blackboard. They would have to copy the flip charts. And then we'd finally have the lesson, and the class periods were like 40 minutes. So by the time you put it up there and they, you know, copy it, you've lost 20 minutes of your class time. And so, you know, it just became kind of a driving obsession for me to get textbooks for the school, for the class.
What was so amazing to me is I went to Ethiopia being prepared to be overwhelmed and actually almost non-functional with the poverty in Ethiopia. I was not there for 10 minutes before I became overwhelmed and really stopped by the poverty in America. And what I meant by that, and see if you think the same, I was so amazed by their enormous desire to learn, by their big sense of gratitude, by just the love that I felt there. Like you don't feel alone because there's just so much spirit.
Well, they don't let you be alone.
Yeah, and I think what really captivated me, and Oprah kind of said this too, when someone asked her, why aren't you giving laptops to kids in America? And she said, because they want iPads or something else, or they want Ferraris. But those kids, they want to learn so much.
Yep.
Desire to learn. Watch out, world, because here they come.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, I really hope that there won't be a revolution there, but I'm concerned that there will be, because Ethiopia has had the fastest growing economy in Africa for the last 10 years. And you can see, even though I was only there a year ago and wasn't there as long as I was supposed to be, you can see the progress. And, you know, a lot of which, thanks to our current administration, this is not a political statement. The US is missing a bet.
Absolutely.
They should be investing in Ethiopia because the Chinese are there. And I mean, you can't buy anything that isn't made in China, for heaven's sake, over there. And so, and you know, so it's a budding consumer culture, for better or for worse. It is going to go that way because many Ethiopians have family members here, and even in the most remote areas, they know it's a bigger world out there and they want it. And so
and they're so in such a loving manner. They're so desirous of the things that we don't appreciate, like education, and like, you know, you give a little child a hair tie and they're like, gratitude is immense.
Yes, for sure. I mean, of course it was heart-wrenching to leave. We had about 4 days. So we were all concerned that the disruptions that were going on in the country would force us to be evacuated for maybe a 30-day period. And there was lots of rumor going on among the volunteers. And I would just call the country director and say, so what is the real story here? And he said, I'm thinking that what's really going to evacuate us is COVID, this coronavirus that they knew nothing about at the time, but was starting to spread like wildfire. And he said, if anything causes us to evacuate, it will be that. And so, I mean, from the time he said that, like within 2 weeks, we were gone. Wow. And, you know, we got a notice on the 13th, early in the morning, from the director of the Peace Corps in Washington, D.C., saying that we should all be on alert and ready to evacuate because it appeared that many African countries were closing their borders. And, you know, so I was a complete wreck on the Saturday before they called on Monday the 15th and said, you have to be here in 24 hours. because it takes about 12 hours to get to the capital from my town.
Wow.
And so I, it was, and my teachers that I would tell this to would say, oh, it's probably really not going to happen. God's will is that you will be here. Very, very, very religious in that country. And I'm like, I don't know. And so sure enough, on Monday afternoon, the 15th at 5 o'clock, right after the country had closed the schools that morning, we were, all of us, called and told to come in to evacuate. So I only had the opportunity to tell 2 of my colleagues, because already it was 5 o'clock. We're not allowed to be outside after dark. I had to pack. I had, trying to figure out what to take and what to leave, because of course I had gone down there with 125 pounds of stuff and I was not going to drag it back. And so a lot of people in my town and none of my students knew until the next day that I was gone. And as it turned out, they chartered a plane for us. So we were in the capital that last week for most of the week. Well, I was getting phone calls from students in tears. I mean, just bawling, What do you say?
Uh,
Well, it's an unknown time. You're not expected to have that answer, right? I think I think what you're doing is very honorable, and it's worthy for you to share your story. So we thank you for being here. I mean, I heard you a couple weeks ago, but I hear it again, and it's still just as good. So thank you for sharing with our club.
Sure. Well, and I have to say, every time I tweak this presentation or go through it, it kind of brings back all those same feelings. So as kind of an aside, my students in those last few days when I was in the Capitol, I had 2 of my best students called me and, we're all upset. And I said, so how would you like to try a distance learning experiment where I will text assignments to Ms. Ganu, who was our 11th grade physics teacher, and he will try to get the assignments to you. And then you can text answers back to me with using like a WhatsApp type of app. Not all the kids have a phone, not all the kids have a smartphone, but enough of them did. And so all through the summer, every week I was sending them reading lessons with, answer these questions, whether it was multiple choice or write, long form or whatever. So I've been in regular contact with, all the main ones since the time I've been gone. And it's really great. I'm very happy.
And so your plan is to be back there within a year, right? Is that what I heard correctly?
I hope.
So go ahead.
I'm assuming we're going to have a vaccine. I will not go.
Don't ever assume anything.
Well, I know. Well, I'm hoping that we have a vaccine.
That's a better word. Okay. If our club would like to support your efforts, what is the avenue to take to make a cash donation if we're able to do so?
Well, that would be really tremendously wonderful. I very much appreciate it. And actually, we're having cash donations go to the Rotary 5170 Foundation, Rotary District 5170 Foundation. So you could just mail a check or however you want to do it to Olivia.
And what do you put in the memo to ensure that it's earmarked towards this?
So just say Ethiopia project.
And it's clear that way. Okay. Yes. So we have a board meeting next week. I just wanted to know how we would do that if we're able to.
Sure.
Like I said, it's very honorable what you're doing. And, we would love to invite you back once you're able to, get on back there. We'll try to meet somewhere in the middle of our time zone or something, and maybe just get a little update in your new homeland kind of thing when you're able to go back. So, and the invitation to our club meetings is always open to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I
Cecelia?
love coming to the meetings.
Great, great. So I know that you and Joan want to connect. So
I'll just, all
Just
my
put it,
chat.
here, I'll put in the chat my information and then just send me yours.
Yeah.
Cecelia,
Okay,
out of
perfect.
curiosity, I don't know why this caught my eye on your list, but the chickens, is it expensive for them to get chickens?
Well, so
because we're
I-
willing to give you one. His name is Ken. It's a
Cecilia knows Ken very well.
very meaty chicken.
there's gotta
Nobody
be,
repeat that. I was
there's
kidding.
gotta be a story behind that. So it's interesting why, hard to know why they don't. I mean, I did see one or two chickens running around when I was there, but in other communities, they're all over the place. So, and everyone that we have asked, because you do a community assessment and you talk to the people in the community, they all say, oh, we'd love to be able to get eggs and have chickens. And so I think that it probably in that community is expensive for them. They have to get the wood to build the chicken coops and then nesting materials and water bottles and this and that. And so, and feed if they're not going to be just loose.
Yeah.
And so I think that they probably do, they probably, no individual family would have enough money to start an operation where they could sell the eggs and earn a profit. That's really what the chicken project is going to be about. Turn it into a really rather large chicken project, and make it, that'll be the community source for buying eggs.
Because I know people, in general, people when they're giving money, they really like it when there's a direct link to something.
Right.
And people,
Yes.
things like livestock or chickens.
Yes.
That's like
And
something.
understanding the
We're
purpose.
Yeah.
supporting the chickens for this entire, little village or something.
Village. Yeah, you're right, Greg. You're
Right.
absolutely
You know what
right.
I mean? Like the Almaden
Well,
Valley
we will
Rotary
be-
Chicken Project kind of a deal,
Let's call it something
We
else.
need branding on the cages though, right?
Yeah, let's call it something else.
Can we have a sign on it that Almaden Valley
course.
Rotary Chicken Farm?
You know what? You got it. You got it. We'll make sure the sign is on it. Actually, what I'll do is I'll find out how much a chicken costs there.
Okay,
And,
Yeah, and
you know,
full cost of like you were talking about the wood or frame and feed, maybe for I don't know, some sort of sustainable, some sort of sustainable lifespan. Maybe start with one, and then what it progresses to 2, 3, 4, 5.
right.
Something like that.
The amount of money that's budgeted will create a pretty large, for that location, chicken operation. And so anyway.
How far does the US dollar go there? Sorry for my ignorance, but
Really, really far.
Okay.
Really far. Now, some things cost just as much there as they do here. But by comparison, I mean, I don't even know. So just as an example, teachers there, a first-year teacher in my high school earns $85 a month, which is, higher. Yeah. So call it $10 a day when they get paid. So what I'm hoping in all this is that the chicken operation and the garden will actually provide revenues to the school so that they can pay the teachers more and keep their equipment and everything updated. So some of this is going to benefit the school directly, but also be good for the community. And some of it will benefit individuals in the community and help them provide jobs, because that's really what's needed.
Cool.
Cool. Well, thank you, Cecelia, for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Your passion really comes across.
It does, yeah. Are there any more questions? You have 30 seconds. Just kidding. Your time is over.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but graciously, Cecelia, thank you so much
Sure.
for sharing with us.
Sure.
It's quite phenomenal, and I wish
Well, I will
Bill
be
Bynum.
happy.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll be happy to come back anytime. And, you know, if you'd maybe somewhere down the road, like to, you know, not next week, like to see sort of the travelogue version of my Peace Corps experience, which is not quite as to the point as this was, I'd be happy to come back and show it. Or if you do a social event and want to see it or whatever.
Yeah, I think what we would like to focus on is this project. If we're willing and able to, you know,
Okay.
contribute to it, we'd like to see the progress and the stages of progression and so forth, so we can keep up to date with it. And I know Bill Bynum,
Sure.
well, he's on, I don't feel bad for that
Yeah.
fool. He's on the beach of Hawaii, so whatever.
Hmm.
But he would love to hear this. So we'll definitely have you back.
And I promise you that your club's name will be on that chicken coop.
Oh, you're funny. Thank you. So you have our contact information. So as you see progression in it, if you get updates of, oh my gosh, I'm going back in January or whatever the case
Sure.
may be, we can start like putting it on our ticker as
Sure.
well to keep track and stay in touch. Okay. Thank you so
Okay.
much again, Cecelia. Brian?
Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Did you guys exchange information, Joan and Cecelia?
Yeah, I've got her phone number.
Hope to see you
Okay,
all
cool.
soon.
Cool. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Okay, bye.